Romeo Planning Commission to order. And first order of business is roll call.
Chairman Edwards,
Here.
Trustee Fowler,
Here.
Luther, Trapp,
Here.
Trabovich,
Here.
Grandstaff,
Here.
Stegner,
Here.
and Webb. Okay.
Thank you. And the minutes from our previous meeting. They were included in our packet. Any comments or proposals to?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve, second.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the next item on the agenda is the public forum, at which time anyone in the audience who wishes to address the planning commission about any subjects, we have an opportunity to do so. If you're here on business that's already on the agenda, then you'll have a chance to talk when we get to that business.
Wait.
Yes,
I'd like to talk.
Wait.
please
You
do.
know me.
I was going to put you on the agenda.
What?
I was going to put you on the agenda.
I know. I didn't know whether you put me on the agenda or not.
We are going to add you to it.
Please feel free.
Great. I'm Ruth Heiderbrecht. I live at 354 Salem Drive South, Romeo Village. And I'm here tonight to introduce myself and introduce our new company, a nonprofit corporation called The MIT, which will be the new communication hub for Romeo, Bruce, Washington, and all the surrounding areas. We developed this because we're kind of lacking in a TV station right now. And our local communication has been kind of halted as far as local events and meetings. And this is Tara Humphrey, who works for the MIT now. And we've been broadcasting your meetings since the contract ended with Washington. And we'll continue to film those until hopefully we do a contract with Romeo.
Yes.
So the reason why we decided to temporarily move into Morton Street Studio as Studio B, and that is once we get the approval of the board from Romeo, is that we thought we'd bring back the communication hub to Romeo, back where it was. And we've also been talking to The Record, which is our new newspaper. We've got our newspaper back. They've gone into a week
Good.
now, every week. And so we thought we'd combine our efforts. Instead of sending, two different groups out to each event, we'd share and work together. So we plan on doing that out of Morton Street as Studio B. And then we also have a space in the Romeo Observer building, which would be Studio A. It's kind of nice to be back in the Romeo Observer building. So this will be a web-based broadcasting TV station. We hope to have enough programming by July to go through to a 24-hour broadcasting schedule. And we're working hard. Now, if you go to The MIT TV, THEMITTT, 3 T's and a V, you can see what we're doing. We'll be broadcasting everything on Facebook. We'll be live streaming, and we'll also be live streaming your meetings. So I don't know if everybody's for this or not, but we're going to be live streaming, and then the residents are going to be able to talk and communicate during the meetings. So there'll be a live blog underneath the live streaming, and residents can chat. Now we'll have some regulations there. You won't get the crazies. We'll keep those at bay, but it'll give the community a chance to see the meetings and talk about them. I know a lot of people don't come to the meetings because they just get home, they just get dinner on the table, and it's hard for them to get out here, but they would like to. So this gives them the availability of having it right in their front living room. So we're going to be offering original programming series. We've just highlighted a couple of our series that Tara has produced, and with local residents that are outstanding. So please go to the MIT and take a look at it, and you'll be seeing us everywhere. We're going to cover our events, we're going to cover our parades, and everything happens here, so we can't miss it. So you'll be seeing us a lot, and you'll be seeing the MIT, and we hope to, also we're working in in relationships with New Baltimore, Chesterfield, Elmont, Armada, Imlay City to bring their programming here too. So that'll allow us to keep those people updated on what we're doing here and bring more people in. And again, this is a nonprofit, so at the end of the year, we're gonna be doing quite a few fundraisers. But at the end of the year, all of those profits go back to the community. Do you have any questions?
A little bit more on the record and your relationship and how this is going to work out of.
You know,
Do we
I
have
just
this much
said,
time, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Okay, yes.
you know, I just thought that why should we be splitting resources when, you know, you'd have a reporter and our cameras and a reporter and a shooter at the same event. So I got together with the record because everybody's so happy right now to get some type of communication back.
Yes.
And, you know, we're gonna be covering a lot of the same things, so they were thrilled. They said, yeah, let's do it. So, you know, because we're a nonprofit, we don't have a problem with whatever they take in. And we'll help them and they'll help us. And we'll have our communications back in our town.
So regarding the studio here on
Mhm.
Morton Street, you're working with the Romeo planning, or the Romeo trustees at
Yes.
this point?
We
For
go
a
before
contract?
them on the
16th.
16th.
Okay.
Next week.
And we're also working with Parks and Rec for their permission too.
Great,
Because we're gonna be kind of just making sure they're happy.
sure.
And we're ecstatic that they would give us some room and
Okay.
that that we have that location again.
I've
Okay.
chatted with Claire.
Sure.
And right now, the building can be split between the two.
Right, that's
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
That's great news.
We don't need a lot of room. The new technology,
Yeah.
we don't need all of the equipment that you
Right.
saw back there. You know,
Oh.
you'll never see that again.
No,
So we have, and if you go to the MIT on Facebook, you'll see the new high definition. You know, in your meetings, you'll see them, like, you'll see them now in a new format. And you'll see a lot of the programs a lot clearer. They look like television,
great.
so.
That is great news.
Yes.
Thank you
Welcome
very
back.
much for
All
sharing.
right.
Are we
Thank you.
streaming tonight?
Are you what?
Streaming
No,
tonight?
we won't be streaming until we go live. So,
And so will we see, just one more,
yeah, sure.
the record, will we see content from the record that's attributed to them? I mean, I know they have a website,
Sure. They have a digital,
but will,
newspaper
you know,
too.
will there be broadcast through the MIT that says, you know, brought to you by the record, blah, blah, blah? Just
We'll-
kind of curious about that.
one of the things that we would like to offer is because we have a community of, we also have blind and people that can't see so well, that can't read the record. We have 4 volunteers that are willing to read the record every week on our station. We also are providing American Sign Language through Jessica Mitchell on the bottom of every program. So we're pulling in the deaf community, which we have quite a large deaf community in this area. So we're right now, I'm supposed to be meeting with the record next week, and we're still putting that together. But right now, they have a digital newspaper, but you'll see a lot more of the programs, you know, associated with the record.
Cool, good
Yeah.
luck.
Thanks,
Thank you for coming back.
thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you again. Okay, moving on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is lot joining 202 West Washington. And I think the landowners are here, the people who desire to make this joining. Cindy took a look back at our previous incidents where this has occurred, and it's not a real complicated affair. I think the planning commission has to look at the joining, make sure there are no violations that would be occurring as a result of the 2 lots coming together, either because of setbacks or any other issues. And if there are no objections, then we will just need a motion to join the lots. And then I think it goes to the county then? Is that the next step? Cindy, I'm not sure I remember. I think,
I think we got
obviously,
on Monday's meeting.
They are on the
Trustees?
agenda
Yeah,
for the
Monday's
trustees.
meeting.
okay.
Yeah, they're
And
already
then
on
the
that.
deeds have to be changed. Okay,
We already registered the deeds.
okay.
And then
Okay.
assessing will.
And my question, the lot that's, I'll call it in lots in the back, the lot that faces the alley, are there any buildings or anything on that property now? No, it's all empty?
Correct.
Okay. And part of that lot goes behind another street that's on Washington, another lot that's on Washington?
Correct.
Okay,
Our neighbors to the east.
yes.
What plans do you have for that property? What are?
Hopefully we're an in-ground pool.
Improvements.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're not gonna throw a big building up there or anything like that?
Well,
Okay.
anything would have to
We're
conform.
going down
Right.
under,
Right.
not up top.
Right.
A pool, okay.
That's the goal.
So you need a motion?
We could entertain a motion to join, yes.
I make a motion that we accept this joining of the property on 202 West Washington.
I'll second.
And we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Say aye.
Okay.
Yeah, summertime's coming up, we'll get the grill
Oh,
out.
let's watch you.
You're all welcome.
We're coming over.
Okay, next
Family
item.
vacation, right?
Item on the agenda is the animal control ordinance discussion at a meeting, previous meeting. I think we had just a very general discussion about the possibility of introducing an ordinance in the Village of Romeo that would allow, under very strict conditions, the keeping of fowl, specifically chickens. And to that end, I know Catherine has done a lot of research, and I did a little bit of research, and all of that information was presented to Mark Clark. And I think what we have in our packet today is simply a summary of those comments. So I'm not sure what we do next with this. The more I read about it, the more complicated it gets. That's one thought. I've personally heard several objections to the overall plan. And I think the biggest objection I've heard personally is the responsibility of enforcement and the pressure it's going to put on those people. I suppose it'll be the police department in trying to regulate something that is difficult to do because if we do end up writing an ordinance, it's going to have a lot of restrictions, and it will be up to those policemen to observe and enforce those restrictions. And it could be difficult, I guess, to say the least. So I'd like to hear from I'd like to express one other concern I have. Anytime a new ordinance is introduced in the Village of Romeo or any entity, it costs money. It's going to cost money for attorneys to write the ordinance. It's going to cost money for hearings, for mailings. A lot of expense will be incurred, and I think I myself personally had to ask myself, is it worth it? Especially knowing what the village economic situation is today. I would hesitate at this point, after having expressed previously that I saw nothing wrong with someone owning a couple of chickens. I'm sure I said that. However, having put more thought into it, those are the conclusions I've come to at this point. So what I'd like to hear tonight is other members' comments regarding where we go from here. Before we dive into the details, does the concept really carry enough weight right now to do that? That's where I'm at. So anyone who wants to speak, please do.
I guess my question is, how many are we talking here? What is the, 50 residents have chickens? I've got to say, I don't walk the streets anymore, and
I think we're under 10. If that,
But there is an interest.
Under
too.
5.
I'm sorry?
There's an interest also.
There's an interest in,
wanting that
An
those
ordinance.
that are not aware that there are chickens in the village are waiting for the ordinance to allow for it.
Yeah, there would be two reasons for the ordinance, I suppose, and that if we went forward. One is to legalize
Okay.
what's here now, and then also to offer other people the opportunity to pursue that hobby if they chose to.
You said it went to Mark Clark, our information,
It
our
did.
research. Did he have any feedback, or is he asking for any more research from us, or any other questions?
He basically reviewed what I typed up for him, which is what you guys got here.
Did he have any comments, or no? Okay.
He said if we had any questions or.
So
he
he's
did-
kind of waiting
he-
for us.
Yeah.
To, okay.
I think
Do we
so.
have a clear idea what it will cost the village to implement
I
this?
do not, no. No, and I think that would be.
Some,
I think it would be something you could guesstimate pretty well with given a little time to research it. I'm sure Mark could give some estimate
Yeah, I think
of
so.
the legal costs. But I don't know what the other costs are. Besides the fact that you'll have to publish notices to everyone because it will require at least one, maybe two public hearings.
And that's very expensive.
Yes, that's expensive.
That is expensive, right. Those are mailings, and it has to go to everyone who's affected.
It has to be a personal mailing to just be a public notice
Correct.
of the hearing. Okay.
Plus the
I think
public
when
notice
there's an
too,
ordinance,
yeah.
an
You have
ordinance,
public notice
Yeah,
also.
if it's
Right.
an ordinance, it's
I think everyone has to be
a
notified. I think.
complete
It's
mailing.
direct
Right.
mail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else have any feelings one way or the other?
Do you see we can recoup some of the costs by charging for the permits for the?
Certainly. I mean, that would certainly make someone decide just how bad they wanted to have chickens.
Very true.
Then
Put a
that
price on it.
$500.
If they
Put a
come
number
in
out
for the
there.
permit.
Hmm?
If they come in.
If they come in for the permit. Again,
They
here
don't
again,
know.
we get into the enforcement issue, and some people might decide that it would be okay just to have a couple of chickens without going through all that hassle at the village.
Well, then if we don't go through with the new ordinance, what do we do with the existing chickens?
That'd be in violation.
Okay.
So they get
So
ticketed.
that would be enforced?
Yeah.
I don't see any other way to view it. I don't think we can have a grandfather chicken clause.
Right.
Oh, this gets better and better.
You can have some fun with it
Well, we were
anyway.
giving them leeway now while we were discussing this.
Where's the colonel, right?
How many people have chickens?
We don't know.
That's good.
What's the fine for it? I mean, what's their violation right now? If someone
Citation.
was to come in
I
and
don't
say,
know. I don't know.
buy a chicken in my backyard,
Yeah,
if we're making this into a chicken coop,
yeah.
you guys just give me the permission to do that. So.
Yeah, I do not know the consequences right now. I think probably the violator would get a warning first and have the opportunity to correct the violation. And if it
Within so
continues.
much time,
I mean, it's
yeah.
not.
Well, it'd be a citation from the police department
Right.
and then just show up in
and,
front of the
it's,
judge.
it's a civil penalty. I mean, it-
Right.
I think the biggest problem would be if there was a rooster among those chickens.
Yes.
Well,
I would be less than pleased at 5
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning.
well, that was certainly, I think, one of the common restrictions in all
Yeah.
the ones that we
I,
read.
Mhm.
there
No
was,
roosters. No
in
roosters.
several of the ordinances,
It was mentioned.
specific reference to the rooster, so.
Right. Yeah.
You said several people mentioned enforcement. How would it be enforced? Did that come from the police department?
I did have comments, not directly, but indirectly from the police department, that they
Uh-huh.
thought that the enforcement might be difficult.
I-
That was not, we won't do it or anything like that. It's
Right.
just- And I can see how that could be the case, if you say that, you know, that someone's gonna have to inspect, if we in fact end up with a definition of what a chicken coop has to consist of, and somebody has to go inspect the chicken coop and say, yes, it conforms. Because there is certainly a danger of pests collecting around anywhere chickens are being kept. Specifically rats can be an issue. So,
Skunks, foxes.
yeah, there will certainly be predators looking for a quick meal. And, so,
In talking to one of the police officers, they expressed concern, and if the ordinance was subjective. What is acceptable, or who makes the judgment as to
Right.
what is acceptable. They were very concerned about what we were doing.
Right,
How complete are we going to be
right.
if we're gonna do it?
How
we have to-
how objective can you make the rules so that there does not have to be any subjective
Yep.
decisions? And I guess it can be, I don't know how much time we want to spend on it, though. Because we're not going to be able to just go online and just pop out an ordinance. It's going to take hours and hours of deliberation, I think, using the tools we have and the information that, like Catherine has already gathered, and that we have in front of us now. You can pick and choose from that, I'm sure, and eventually put together something that everyone would agree on. But I'm asking tonight, is there enough interest to do that? Because at this point, there's nothing on the table except discussion. And until there is a motion that passes that says that we, the Planning Commission, will proceed to develop a animal control ordinance that includes the keeping of fowl, until that happens, it's just going to be a discussion item. And if that's the case, then I would use the following, the month coming up to put together some cost numbers,
Okay.
so that at least as a planning commission, we could say to whomever asks, yes, we are willing to spend this amount of money because we think it's that important. Or we're not going to, one or the other.
I think your decision to project the numbers out there
Okay.
Yeah.
and to come up with an assessment of basically what it's gonna cost
Okay.
and who's it going to affect, we'll make a decision on the next meeting.
Okay. Cindy, I'd like to request, if you would, please, just to ask Mr. Clark to give us some estimate of what the legal costs might be to develop an ordinance, and also to detail each of the steps that we will be going through in order to introduce a new ordinance.
Would this be a new ordinance, or would you just amend the animal?
It would be an
control?
amendment, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do have an animal control ordinance, so this would be an amendment.
Okay.
And if we could, in our ordinance, it says, Village of Romeo Animal Control Ordinance 412. I'd like to see that.
Yes,
We need to see a copy of that.
let's have that in our
Yeah.
in our next packet. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That would be a
In
good
the,
idea.
in the work that you guys did, was there any knowledge as to what the other town, communities charge for the permits?
I did see that some charged, didn't you? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there were fees, I don't remember the numbers.
Healthy numbers.
I know a lot of them started at around 50, was I think the minimum.
$50.
And then, I don't know if
Per-
it's yearly or one time only.
Per chicken or per,
Yeah.
I'm not being
Per
funny.
address.
I'm not being funny.
That's a good question.
No,
Per-
per
per-
address.
I think we're gonna.
Per address.
Per address.
Okay, let's pump it
Now,
up.
but that could be, I don't know if that's annually
Discourage the
or
name, okay?
one time.
Okay, all right, let's go in that direction right now. The next item on the agenda, I had asked Cindy to put this on here. I was not able to be at the last meeting, I was out of town. And at that meeting, I know L&L was here to request a site plan approval. And one of their requests included an exception to the parking requirements. And I happen to be familiar with that because I happen to work for a company that asks for the same thing in Armada Township. And having gotten that in Armada Township, I went to their ordinance and copied the insert that they amended, how I copied the pages where they amended their parking ordinance in the industrial district. That gives the planning commission the flexibility to treat a new site plan with some respect to the activities that are going to occur inside the building. Right now, the industrial parking requirements just treat every industry the same thing. If you have 500 square feet, you have a parking place. I think that's the number, I'm not sure. And I know in their situation, they're primarily adding on warehouse. And warehousing typically requires a lot fewer people than does a direct manufacturing operation. So here again, it involves an ordinance change, but
So do we need a motion from us to accept their?
no, I don't think we can move that quickly. I think all we could do right now, and it wouldn't be fair if I didn't, I think I'm gonna have to apply the same logic to this as I did to the other ordinance, and that is to ask Cindy to but to inquire
Okay.
as to what costs might be involved for us to modify just the industrial parking section of our zoning ordinance.
So it would-
If everyone agrees to it, and it's pretty straightforward. All it says is, when you look at a site plan, distinguish specifically about what activities are going on and make a decision about parking requirements accordingly. I hate the idea of just paving over perfectly good ground
Yeah.
with parking lots if you don't need it. And that's what happens with the current ordinance.
So it would stay with this body as opposed to going to the ZBA?
Correct.
Okay.
That would be,
That's fine.
and that may be what L&L chose to do.
L&L did choose to go
They
through the
they have the option to do that.
They did.
And this, I'm looking forward down the road
Okay.
for future applications and future site plans to avoid forcing a company to go through the ZBA route. And it would just stay at the planning commission level and say, yes, if you're going to have warehouse in that building, then the requirements are this.
Yeah, one body should be able to approve the entire
Right,
package,
Yeah.
correct?
So it puts flexibility
Correct,
into it,
yeah.
that's all.
I totally agree.
So,
I will inquire.
but that's all I'd like to accomplish tonight, and because I assumed that L&L would pursue another quicker option than
That
this.
is what they
So
decided.
I see this simply as an attempt to give us flexibility down the road, but again, also, I need to look at what the cost might be,
Okay,
and then we'll deal with that.
all right.
So this is our Maida Township one,
Mhm.
Yeah, we had to have that in order to get a building, which we're starting. That completes the items on the agenda. Catherine attended a seminar recently.
Yes, last week I was at Road Professional Services Company in Flint, their civil engineering group, and they had how do they call it, like it can, here's the flyer, like an open education for people in planning, local municipalities, planning commissions, ZBA boards to attend, and it was well represented by all across the state, kind of. The issues that were hot buttons, that are hot buttons now, are signs, wedding barns, changes to the Right to Farm Act, and adaptive reuse of obsolete buildings were the hot topics that they talked about. Which was a little bit of an eye-opener, because a lot of who knew that, at least for me, that these are new issues now that they really wanted to concentrate on.
You said wedding barns?
Wedding barns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Now the big,
now they're big, and there's a lot of regulations that a lot of people don't know about.
Wasn't Stevens trying to do that down here on the one barn, right off the alley by Uptown Party Store? Didn't he rehab that for weddings?
I don't know.
I thought he was trying something.
And the Michigan Right to Farm Act, which kind of ties in with the chickens
Yep.
we were talking about. They gave us a large packet, actually, of information. And they also talked about signs, but I don't think we've had issues in the village about signs either directing traffic or advertising an event or real estate or stuff like that, because there was apparently some court cases that went to the Supreme Court that now regulates how signs are being dealt with in local municipalities. And adaptive reuse, what to do with old big buildings that are empty and how to reuse them so it kind of doesn't look like there's too much blight going on. And they're not necessarily talking about like the big box stores, like an empty grocery store or something, because I know there's a few around here that let's work to maybe try and get a new use out of them, a new zoning out of them, possibly for
Were there examples presented during that portion?
the adaptive reuse.
Yes.
Let me go back. Right. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I didn't make copies of the slideshow that they did, but adaptive reuse, a common adaptive reuse in the past were schools, state institutions, and now new challenges they're talking about are vacant strip malls and vacant greenfield industrial sites. Those are what are popping up as the empty eyesores.
Okay.
And then what uses zoning ordinances may not allow or propose use in the district allowed, so rezoning, amending ordinances to allow specific use, allow adaptive reuse as a use allowed. So we do have that option if people see an empty building. Like, what keeps popping in my head is the fire department
Well, how about that closed gas station?
and the gas station, items like that,
Plenty
you
of
know,
property behind that too.
somebody approaches us, or it's time to get creative. More municipalities are getting creative on how to reuse these items, reuse these properties to, avoid the thought of blight.
Excellent.
And what else did they talk about? Yeah, it was a 2-hour session, and it went over because everybody just had questions, and the 2 hours just went by really quickly. They had a couple guest speakers talking, and it was very interesting.
Thank you very much for attending that.
Yep.
And I'm sure that's information that we'll be able to share if something comes up in front of us that
Yeah,
we
'cause
can
you
apply
never
that.
know. Yep.
Can we get a copy
Yeah.
of that?
Oh, yes, well, I apologize for not having copies
No.
prepared, but I wasn't sure what would be
Yeah,
the
but if you
interest.
want to give it to me, and I can
This-
email everybody.
I did write a few notes
I'll
in there,
email
so
you.
don't mind my chicken scratching, no pun intended. But
Yeah, we'll
I
just email them, yeah.
I also heard, though, as we were leaving, that in October they have another seminar. If anybody's interested, I'll
Keep us informed.
keep you guys,
keep
everybody
going.
informed. It's very
You
interesting.
keep going. There you go.
I will attend the next.
Yeah, you keep going. Good job.
Were there any other items that we wanted to discuss tonight that might not be on the agenda?
I just wanted to give an update on the 425 agreement that the council had sent to Washington Township. We finally heard back from Mr. O'Leary, who sent us, I gave a letter out to members of the board here, who basically sent us a letter back saying that Myers has requested that he pursue the 425 agreement with the Village of Romeo, which shares in the revenue, the municipalities, everything like that. I do have a copy of the blueprint with me, which some of you had a chance to look at. It will be at the council meeting on Monday night also. But,
Will that's an item on the agenda for Monday night? then?
yes,
Okay.
Yes,
And that
it
would
is.
be to discuss a response to
yes.
this letter?
And I hope you will be there too.
I hope
because,
so.
We definitely have to, as a body,
Mhm.
figure out what our responsibility is going to be with this agreement,
Okay.
as opposed to just being a pole standing there.
Mhm. So I guess just to summarize that, based on what Mr. Clark shared with us at a previous meeting, the 425 would allow Washington Township and the Village of Romeo to agree that the Village of Romeo would supply water and sewer for a certain portion of that property for a certain period of time, for a certain amount of money.
Correct.
And until such time that Washington Township could complete their infrastructure to be the primary source of water and sewer. So as Mark described it, it would be a win-win situation under the best of circumstances. The Village of Romeo has an asset that they don't particularly need right now. We have excess capacity in both sewer and water. And Washington Township, as I understand it, can't technically launch this project until those two things are available
Correct.
to those entities,
Correct.
in this case Myers. So I would hope that from a village resident's standpoint, I would hope that there would be an agreement there that benefits both parties. As to whether or not I'm looking forward to that particular development, that's something totally different and not my position to comment on.
It's just good that we do have a seat at the table as opposed to just being shoved in on us.
Well, I know one of the things that was discussed previously was whether or not the part of the agreement would include, and I think Mark mentioned this, whether part of the agreement would include the Romeo Planning Commission being a participant as the plan goes forward.
And as you notice that their planning commission has already
It appears
Done,
that
yeah.
that is not going to be the case.
Extensive job as far as the
Right.
development.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Any comments? Motion to adjourn?
Motion, I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.